The blood hadn't even dried on the floorboards when Zara Vaughn realized her entire world had shattered into pieces too small to ever put back together. She stood in the doorway of what used to be her home in Winnemucca, Nevada, in the summer of 1878, staring at the destruction left behind by the men who had torn through her life like a tornado through wheat fields. The doctor had been clear 3 days later when the bleeding finally stopped. No children. Not ever. The damage was too severe, too complete, and at 23 years old, Zara found herself mourning not just what had been stolen from her that terrible night, but everything that would never be. She sold the house within a month. Couldn't bear to wake up in that place one more sunrise. The money from the sale was enough to buy a small millinery shop on the main street, and Zara threw herself into the work of creating beautiful things with her hands. Hats adorned with ribbons and feathers, bonnets trimmed with lace, practical sun hats for the Nevada heat. Her fingers moved with precision and purpose, but her heart remained as empty as the desert that stretched beyond the town limits. The whispers followed her everywhere. Poor Miss Vaughn. Such a tragedy. No husband would want her now. The women of Winnemucca pitied her, and the men looked away when she passed, as though her misfortune might be contagious. Zara learned to hold her head high despite the weight of their judgment. But at night, alone in the small room above her shop, she allowed herself to feel the full measure of her grief. Cole Crawford rode into Winnemucca on a Tuesday afternoon with dust on his boots and a letter in his pocket. The letter was from his brother, Samuel, who had written 6 months prior about opportunities in Nevada, about silver mines and cattle ranches, about a fresh start far from the disappointments of Texas. Cole was 26, broad-shouldered from years of ranch work, with sun-weathered skin and dark hair that fell across his forehead when he forgot to get it cut. He had kind eyes, the pale blue of a winter sky, and hands that were equally skilled with a rope, a hammer, or a spooked horse. Samuel Crawford had established himself well in Winnemucca. He owned a modest cattle operation on the outskirts of town and had built a reputation as an honest dealer and a fair employer. When Cole arrived at his brother's ranch, Samuel embraced him with genuine warmth and immediately began talking about plans to expand, to build something substantial together. "There's real opportunity here, Cole," Samuel said as they sat on the porch that evening, watching the sun paint the desert in shades of orange and gold. "The town's growing. The silver mines bring in workers who need beef. The railroad's talking about extending a line through here. We could build something lasting." Cole nodded, feeling the familiar pull of possibility that came with new territory. He had left Texas without regrets, leaving behind a failed engagement to a woman who decided she preferred a banker's son to a cowboy's uncertain future. The sting of that rejection had faded during the long journey north, and now Cole found himself ready to focus on work, on building something with his hands and his determination. He rode into town the next morning to purchase supplies. Winnemucca was smaller than he expected, but had a vibrant energy. The main street bustled with activity, freight wagons unloading goods, miners spending their wages, ranchers conducting business. Cole guided his horse to the general store and dismounted, making quick work of his shopping list. He was walking back to his horse, arms full of packages, when a sudden gust of wind sent a woman's hat tumbling down the street. Without thinking, Cole dropped his packages and lunged for the hat, catching it just before it could roll into a muddy puddle. He turned to return it, and found himself looking at the most striking woman he had ever seen. Zara had been crossing the street when the wind seized her favorite creation, a wide-brimmed hat she had made herself with silk flowers and a navy ribbon. She watched the cowboy chase it down with an athleticism that spoke of a life spent in motion. And when he straightened and walked toward her, hat extended, she felt something flutter in her chest that she thought had died completely. "Your hat, miss," Cole said, and his voice was low and warm like whiskey by a fire. "Thank you," Zara replied, taking it from him. Their fingers brushed and she pulled back as though burned. "That was very kind of you. Couldn't let such a fine hat meet its end in the mud." Cole smiled, and the expression transformed his serious face into something almost boyish. "You made it yourself. I can tell by the stitching. My mother used to make hats. I recognize the handiwork of someone who cares about their craft." Zara found herself surprised. Most cowboys she knew wouldn't notice such details, wouldn't comment on needlework or craftsmanship. "I own the millinery shop," she said, gesturing down the street. "Vaughn's hats." "Cole Crawford," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "Just arrived from Texas. Working with my brother Samuel on his cattle ranch." Zara Vaughn. She shook his hand briefly, formal and proper. "Welcome to Winnemucca, Mr. Crawford." Something in her tone suggested the conversation was ending, a polite dismissal that Cole recognized but chose to gently ignore. "If you don't mind my saying, Miss Vaughn, that's remarkable work. My mother would have admired it greatly." "Would have?" Zara asked, catching the past tense. "She passed 4 years ago, fever." Cole's expression softened with old grief. "She was a fine woman, strong and creative. Could make something beautiful out of almost nothing." Zara felt her carefully maintained walls crack just slightly. "I am sorry for your loss," she said, and meant it. "A mother's love is irreplaceable." They stood there in the middle of the street, traffic flowing around them, and for a moment, neither seemed to know what to say next. Finally, Zara clutched her hat more firmly and nodded. "I should return to my shop. Thank you again for rescuing my hat." "The pleasure was mine, Miss Vaughn." Cole watched her walk away, noting the straight line of her spine, the careful control in her movements, as though she was holding herself together by sheer force of will. Over the following weeks, Cole found reasons to ride into town more frequently than strictly necessary. He told Samuel he needed to familiarize himself with Winnemucca, to understand the merchants and the rhythms of commerce. Samuel, who was more perceptive than he let on, simply nodded and suggested Cole might want to get a haircut while he was at it. Cole did get a haircut and new shirts, and he stopped by Vaughn's hats to purchase a gift for Samuel's wife, Martha. Zara was professional and courteous, showing him various options while maintaining a polite distance. He chose a bonnet with practical sun protection and delicate embroidery, and when Martha received it, she declared it the finest hat she had ever owned. "You bought this from Miss Vaughn?" Martha asked, examining the stitching with an expert eye. She was a warm woman in her early 30s with a generous smile and a direct manner. "She does beautiful work. Such a tragedy what happened to her." Cole, who had been admiring the fit of his new shirt, turned sharply. "What tragedy?" Martha's face fell. "Oh, I assumed you had heard." "Everyone in town knows." She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, then continued in a lower voice. "Last year some drifters came through town. They broke into her home. She was alone. They hurt her terribly, Cole. The doctor said she nearly died from the injuries, and now she cannot have children. It destroyed her engagement. The man she was going to marry called it off once he learned she could not give him heirs." Cole felt rage build in his chest, hot and fierce. "They caught the men who did this." The sheriff tracked them down. "They were hanged in Carson City." Martha's voice was heavy with an old sorrow. "But justice does not heal what was broken. Miss Vaughn has been alone ever since. She works herself to exhaustion in that shop, barely speaks to anyone beyond business. The whole town pities her, and I think that might be worse than the crime itself sometimes." Samuel, who had been listening quietly, added, "She was a different woman before it happened, bright and full of laughter, according to folks who knew her then. Now she is just going through the motions of living." Cole lay awake that night thinking about Zara Vaughn, about the careful way she held herself, the walls she had built, the loss that lived behind her eyes. He thought about his mother, who had taught him that a person's worth had nothing to do with their ability to bear children. That family was built through love and choice as much as blood. He thought about his own loneliness, the empty place inside him that had nothing to do with rejection and everything to do with not having found the right person to build a life with. He began stopping by her shop regularly, always with a reason. He needed a hat for working under the brutal sun. He wanted to send a gift to his sister in Texas. He was curious about the process of shaping felt. Zara was cordial but distant, answering his questions with the patience of a shopkeeper who recognized a paying customer. One afternoon in late August, Cole arrived at her shop to find it closed in the middle of the day. Through the window, he could see Zara sitting at her workbench, her head in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. He knocked gently, and when she did not respond, he tried the door. It was unlocked. "Miss Vaughn," he entered carefully as one might approach a wounded animal. "Zara," she looked up, tears streaming down her face, and for a moment she looked furious at the intrusion. Then something in her seemed to break completely, and she put her face back in her hands. "Please go away." Cole did not go away. He closed the door behind him, turned the sign to closed, and crossed to where she sat. He pulled up a stool and sat beside her, not touching, just present. "I know," he said quietly. "Martha told me what happened to you." Zara's head shot up. "Then you know I am damaged goods. You know I am not a whole woman. You know that any man who takes an interest in me is wasting his time because I cannot give him what a wife should give a husband." "I know that you survived something terrible," Cole said, his voice steady and firm. "I know that you are strong enough to rebuild your life from ashes. I know that you create beautiful things with your hands and that you have more courage in your little finger than most people have in their entire bodies. You do not understand." Zara's voice cracked. "Today would have been my wedding day. 1 year ago, I was planning to marry Thomas Brennan. We were going to have a house full of children. I was going to be a mother, and now I am nothing." Cole felt anger flash through him, not at her, but at a world that had taught her to measure her worth by her womb. "You are not nothing. You are a businesswoman, an artist, a survivor. Any man who could not see that is a fool who did not deserve you in the first place." "Children are what matter," Zara said bitterly. "Family is what matters. What kind of future can I offer anyone? What man wants a wife who cannot give him sons and daughters?" Cole was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "My mother had 3 children," he finally said. "Samuel, me, and our sister Elizabeth. But she also raised 2 other children, cousins whose parents died in a fire. She took them in without hesitation, loved them as fiercely as she loved us. When people would ask her how many children she had, she always said 5. Not 3 that she birthed and 2 she raised, just 5 children. Because to her, family was not about blood. It was about love and commitment and showing up every single day." Zara looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because there are a lot of children in this world who need families," Cole said. "Orphans from disease and accidents and 1,000 other tragedies. Children who need someone to love them, to teach them, to give them a home. A woman who cannot bear a child is not broken, Zara. She is just called to build her family differently." Fresh tears spilled down Zara's cheeks, but these were different. These carried a weight of grief, but also something that might have been hope. "You really believe that?" "I know that." Cole reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. I know that the measure of a woman has nothing to do with her body and everything to do with her heart. And I know that I have been coming to this shop every chance I get because being near you makes me feel more alive than I have felt in years. Zara stared at their joined hands. His was large and calloused, scarred from hard work. Hers was smaller, nimble, marked with tiny needle pricks from her trade. The contrast was striking, but somehow their fingers fit together naturally. "You barely know me. Then let me know you better." Cole's voice was gentle but insistent. "Let me take you to dinner. Let me court you properly. Let me show you that not every man in this world is a fool like Thomas Brennan." "People will talk," Zara warned, but there was less conviction in her voice. "People already talk. Let them." Cole squeezed her hand. "I am not interested in people. I am interested in you." Zara withdrew her hand, but slowly, and she wiped her face with a handkerchief she pulled from her pocket. "I need time to think about this." "Take all the time you need," Cole said, standing. "I am not going anywhere." He left her shop and walked into the bright sunlight, feeling as though he had crossed some invisible threshold. Behind him, Zara sat at her workbench and stared at the hat she had been working on before grief overcame her. For the first time in a year, she allowed herself to imagine a future that did not look like an endless succession of empty days. 3 days later, Zara appeared at Samuel's ranch. Cole was working with a young horse in the corral, patient and steady, as the animal learned to accept a saddle. He looked up and saw her standing by the fence, and his heart jumped in his chest like the horse he was training. "Miss Vaughn," he said, walking over and removing his hat, "this is a pleasant surprise. I have been thinking about what you said." Zara's voice was steadier than it had been in her shop, but he could see the nervousness in the way she gripped her reticule. "About dinner." "And," Cole waited, hardly daring to breathe, "and I think I would like that, if the offer is still available." Cole's smile was like sunrise. "The offer is absolutely still available. Tomorrow evening. I know a restaurant in town, quiet and respectable." "Tomorrow evening," Zara agreed. Then, more softly, "Thank you, Cole, for what you said the other day, for not running away when you saw me crying, for not treating me like I was broken." "You are not broken," Cole said firmly. "And I intend to prove that to you as many times as it takes for you to believe it." Their courtship began slowly, carefully, like two people who had both learned that the world could be cruel and unpredictable. Cole took Zara to dinner, and they talked about everything except the tragedies that had shaped them. She learned about his childhood in Texas, about working cattle drives with his father, about the years he spent trying to prove himself worthy of a woman who ultimately chose security over love. He learned about her journey to Winnemucca, about learning the millinery trade from an aunt in San Francisco, about the joy she found in creating beauty from raw materials. They went on picnics in the hills outside town, where the sagebrush grew thick and the air smelled of hot earth and possibility. They attended church socials together, ignoring the stares and whispers. Cole introduced Zara to Samuel and Martha, who welcomed her with genuine warmth and no trace of pity. 6 weeks into their courtship, on a cool September evening, they sat on a blanket watching the stars emerge in the vast Nevada sky. Zara had been quiet all evening, and Cole sensed she was wrestling with something heavy. "What are you thinking about?" he asked gently. "I am thinking that I am terrified," Zara admitted. "I am thinking that I am starting to care about you very much, and that scares me more than almost anything. Because caring means being vulnerable, and being vulnerable means someone can hurt you." Cole shifted to face her more fully. "I cannot promise that I will never hurt you. People who love each other sometimes hurt each other, usually without meaning to. But I can promise that I will never deliberately cause you pain. I can promise that I will be honest with you, even when honesty is difficult. And I can promise that I am in this for the long term, Zara. I am not courting you as a pastime. I am courting you because I can see spending my life with you. But the children, Zara said, and her voice broke. Cole, I cannot give you children. If you marry me, you are giving up the chance to have sons and daughters of your own blood. How can I ask that of you? Cole took both her hands in his. You are not asking anything of me. I am choosing. I am choosing you, knowing everything, understanding everything. And I am telling you that there are many ways to build a family. We can adopt children who need homes. We can be aunt and uncle to Samuel and Martha's children, to Elizabeth's children. We can pour our love into this community, into the people around us. A life does not have to include biological children to be full and meaningful. But do you not want to see your face in a child's face? Do you not want to pass on your name, your legacy? My legacy will be the life I build, the people I help, the love I share with my wife. Cole's voice was passionate now, urgent. Zara, my mother used to say that children are a blessing, but they are not the only blessing. She said that a good marriage, a partnership of equals who support and challenge each other, is one of the greatest blessings in life. I want that with you. I want to wake up beside you every morning. I want to build a ranch with you to create a life that reflects both of our dreams. If God sees fit to bring children into our lives through adoption or other means, then we will love them with everything we have. But if it is just the two of us, that will be enough. You will be enough. Zara was crying now, but these tears were different from any she had shed in the past year. These were tears of release, of old wounds finally beginning to heal. I love you, she whispered. I did not think I could feel this way about anyone, but I love you, Cole Crawford. Cole pulled her into his arms, holding her as though she was precious and irreplaceable, because she was. I love you too, Zara Vaughn. I think I have loved you since the moment you looked at me on that street, all proud and wounded and determined not to show it. They sat together under the stars, holding each other, and for the first time since that terrible night, Zara allowed herself to believe in the possibility of happiness. Cole proposed 2 weeks later in her shop, getting down on one knee between the hat stands and bolts of ribbon. The ring had belonged to his mother, a simple gold band with a small diamond. Zara said yes before he even finished asking the question, and they were married in October of 1878 in the small church in Winnemucca with Samuel and Martha as witnesses. The wedding was simple but beautiful. Zara wore a cream-colored dress she had sewn herself, adorned with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Cole wore his best suit, his hair finely tamed, his eyes bright with joy. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed her with such tenderness that several women in the congregation dabbed at their eyes with handkerchiefs. They moved into a small house on Samuel's property, close enough for the brothers to work together but far enough for privacy. Cole and Zara spent their first months of marriage learning each other's rhythms and habits, building the foundation of their partnership. Zara continued to run her shop, and Cole threw himself into expanding the cattle operation. But both of them felt the absence of children like a phantom limb, something that should have been there, but was not. They never spoke of it directly, but Cole noticed how Zara's expression would soften when she saw mothers with their babies, and Zara noticed how Cole would watch Samuel playing with his young son, a look of longing crossing his face before he could hide it. In the spring of 1879, everything changed. A wagon train passing through town was struck by disease, and several families lost parents almost overnight. The surviving children were taken to the church, where the minister and his wife were trying to coordinate care and placement. Cole and Zara heard about the situation and went to see if they could help. The church basement was chaos. Children of all ages crying, confused, scared. Volunteers were trying to provide food and comfort, but the sheer number of orphan children was overwhelming. Cole and Zara moved through the room, offering what assistance they could, and that was when they saw him. He was sitting in a corner by himself, a boy of perhaps 7 years old with dark hair and enormous brown eyes. He was not crying like the other children. He was just sitting, staring at nothing, his small hands clenched into fists. Something about his isolation, his determined refusal to break down, pierced Zara's heart. She crossed to him and knelt down. "Hello," she said softly. "My name is Zara. What is your name?" The boy looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "James," he said. "James Mitchell." "James, have you eaten anything today?" He shook his head. Zara held out her hand. "Would you like to come with me? I can get you some food." James hesitated, then placed his small hand in hers. Zara led him to the table where food was set out, and she prepared a plate for him, watching as he ate mechanically, as though he had forgotten what hunger felt like. Cole joined them, sitting across from James with a gentle expression. "How old are you, James?" Cole asked. 7. "My birthday was last month." James's voice was flat, emotionless. "My parents got sick, my sister too, they all died." "I am very sorry," Cole said. "That is a terrible loss. I tried to take care of them." James looked up, and for the first time emotion cracked through his careful control. "I gave them water and tried to keep them cool, but they died anyway. I could not save them." Zara's throat tightened. She reached across the table and took James's hand. "That was not your fault. You did everything you could. Sometimes people die and there is nothing anyone can do to stop it. But that does not mean you failed them." "I am alone now," James said. "The minister said they will find families for us, but nobody wants a boy who is old enough to remember his real family." Cole and Zara exchanged a look, an entire conversation passing between them in a single glance. Cole nodded slightly and Zara squeezed James's hand. "What if we wanted you?" she asked. James looked at her with sudden, sharp hope. "What do you mean?" "My husband and I, we have been thinking about adding to our family. We have a house and a ranch. We have plenty of room and plenty of love. What if you came to live with us?" "You do not even know me," James said, but his voice was hungry now, desperate for what she was offering. "We can get to know each other," Cole said. "We can take things slowly, but if you are willing, we would very much like for you to become part of our family." James looked between them, these two strangers who were offering him salvation. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you want me?" "Because everyone deserves a family," Zara said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "Because you are a brave, strong boy who deserves to be loved and cared for. Because we have room in our hearts and our home for a child just like you." The process of adoption was not quick or simple. There were legal documents to file, interviews with the minister and local officials, waiting periods while authorities confirmed that Cole and Zara were suitable parents. During this time, James stayed at the church with the other orphan children, but Cole and Zara visited him every day. They brought him books and taught him card games. They took him on walks and told him about the ranch, about the horses and cattle, about the life he would have if the adoption was approved. James remained guarded at first, as though waiting for them to change their minds, but gradually, he began to relax. He started to smile occasionally, even to laugh when Cole told jokes or Zara made funny faces. 3 months after they first met James, the adoption was finalized. On a warm June afternoon, they brought him home. James stood in the doorway of the house, clutching a small bag that contained everything he owned, and stared at the room Zara and Cole had prepared for him. It had a real bed with a quilt Zara had sewn, a dresser, a shelf for books, and a window that looked out over the ranch. This is all mine." James asked, his voice small. "All yours," Cole confirmed. "This is your home now, James, for as long as you want it to be." James set down his bag and walked slowly around the room, touching the quilt, the dresser, the books on the shelf. Then, without warning, he turned and threw himself at Zara, wrapping his arms around her waist and bursting into tears. All the grief he had been holding back, all the fear and loneliness and trauma, came pouring out. Zara held him, sinking to the floor so she could hold him properly, rocking him as he sobbed. Cole knelt beside them, wrapping his arms around both of them, and together they weathered the storm of James's grief. When the tears finally subsided, James pulled back, wiping his face with his sleeve. "I am sorry," he mumbled. "Do not apologize," Zara said firmly. "You have every right to cry. You have been so strong for so long, but you do not have to be strong alone anymore. We are here now and we are not going anywhere." "You promise?" James asked, his voice breaking. "We promise," Cole said. "You are our son now, James. Nothing will change that." Adjusting to life as a family took time. James had nightmares about the wagon train, about watching his family die. He would wake up screaming, and Zara or Cole would rush to his room to comfort him. He was skittish around sudden noises and flinched when people raised their voices. But slowly, with patience and consistency, he began to heal. Cole taught him to ride, spending hours in the corral with a gentle mare, showing James how to communicate with the horse through pressure and release. James took to it naturally, and soon he was riding around the property with increasing confidence. Zara taught him to read better and to do arithmetic. She involved him in her work at the shop, letting him help organize supplies and deliver finished hats to customers. Samuel and Martha embraced James as their nephew, and their son, Daniel, who was 6, became James's constant companion. The two boys would play together for hours, building forts and chasing each other through the sagebrush. Watching James laugh and play like a normal child made Zara's heart feel full to bursting. 6 months after James joined their family, Zara and Cole were in town when they encountered the minister. He greeted them warmly and asked how James was adjusting. "He is thriving," Cole said proudly. "He is a natural with horses and a quick learner. We could not be happier." The minister smiled. "I am so glad to hear it. Actually, I wanted to speak with you both. Another situation has arisen. There is a little girl about 4 years old. Her mother died in childbirth last week, and her father was killed in a mining accident 3 months ago. She has no family, no one to take her in. I know you have only recently adopted James, but I wondered if you might consider her as well." Zara and Cole looked at each other. "We should meet her," Zara said. "At the very least, we should meet her." The little girl's name was Rose, and she was tiny even for 4 years old, with blonde curls and blue eyes that seemed too large for her face. She was staying with a temporary foster family who were kind but already had 6 children of their own. When Zara and Cole arrived, Rose was sitting on the front steps, clutching a rag doll that had seen better days. Zara sat down beside her. "Hello, Rose. My name is Zara. This is my husband, Cole." Rose looked up at her but did not speak. The foster mother explained that Rose had barely said a word since her mother died, that she seemed to be locked in her own world of grief. "We have a little boy at home," Zara said gently. "His name is James. He is 7 years old. He lost his family too, and now he lives with us. We have a big house and animals to play with. Would you like to come visit and see if you like it?" Rose studied Zara with those enormous eyes, then slowly nodded. They arranged for Rose to spend the following day at the ranch, a trial visit to see how she interacted with the family. James was nervous about meeting Rose. "What if she does not like me?" he asked Zara the night before the visit. "What if I say something wrong? Just be yourself," Zara advised. "Be gentle and patient. She is very sad right now, just like you were when we first met. She needs kindness." When Rose arrived the next day, James took his role as big brother seriously. He showed her his room and his toys. He introduced her to his horse and helped her feed carrots to the chickens. Rose remained mostly silent, but she followed James everywhere, and gradually her expression began to soften. At lunch, Rose sat between Zara and James and ate the food Zara had prepared. Halfway through the meal, she turned to Zara and whispered, "Can I stay here?" Zara's eyes filled with tears. "Do you want to stay here?" Rose nodded emphatically. "I want to stay with you and Cole and James. I want this to be my family." "Then we will make it happen," Zara promised. "It might take a little time for all the grown-up things to be arranged, but if you want to be part of our family, then that is exactly what will happen." The adoption process for Rose was faster than it had been for James, perhaps because Cole and Zara had already proven themselves capable parents. By September of 1879, Rose was officially theirs. She settled into the household with remarkable ease, attaching herself to Zara with fierce devotion, and following James around like a shadow. James took his role as protective older brother seriously. He helped Rose learn her letters and numbers. He made sure she was never left out of games with Daniel. He checked on her when she had nightmares, sitting beside her bed and holding her hand until she fell back asleep. Watching her son nurture his sister, Zara realized that family was not just about what you could give a child, but about what children could give each other. Life settled into a rhythm. Cole and Samuel's cattle operation flourished, and Zara's shop continued to do well. James started attending the schoolhouse in town, where he proved to be a bright and attentive student. Rose began to talk more, her personality emerging from behind the wall of grief. She was curious and affectionate, prone to asking endless questions and giving unexpected hugs. On a cold December evening in 1879, Cole and Zara sat on their porch after the children had gone to bed. Snow was falling gently, rare for Nevada but not unheard of. Cole had his arm around Zara, and she was leaning against his shoulder. "Are you happy?" Cole asked. Zara considered the question seriously. "I am happier than I ever thought I would be again. When I think back to that day in the shop when you found me crying, when I could not imagine any future worth living, I cannot believe this is the same life. James and Rose have given us such joy." "You have given them everything," Cole said. "You are an incredible mother, Zara." The word mother still felt new and precious to Zara. She had thought she would never be called that, never have children who looked to her for comfort and guidance. The fact that her children did not share her blood made them no less hers. If anything, the conscious choice to build this family, to deliberately create these bonds of love, made it even more meaningful. "You ever regret it?" she asked Cole. "Choosing me, knowing you would not have biological children." Cole turned to face her, his expression serious. "Not for one single second. Zara, I meant what I said to you when we were courting. Blood does not make a family. Love makes a family. Commitment makes a family. Showing up every day and choosing each other makes a family. James and Rose are my children in every way that matters, and you are the love of my life. I would not change a single thing about our life together." Zara kissed him then, soft and lingering, pouring a year and a half of gratitude and love into that single gesture. When they pulled apart, Cole was smiling. "Although I have been thinking," he said. "The minister mentioned another orphan last week. A baby boy whose mother died and whose father disappeared. He is only 8 months old." Zara laughed, surprised. "Cole Crawford, are you suggesting we adopt a baby?" "I am suggesting that we have love to give and room in our home. I am suggesting that our family does not feel quite complete yet. But only if you want to. I know 3 children is a lot, especially with a baby who will need constant care. Zara thought about the house, about the sounds of children's laughter that filled it, about James teaching Rose to play checkers, about the life they had built from the ashes of her trauma. "Let us meet him," she said. "Let us meet this baby and see if he is meant to be ours." The baby was named Thomas, though the minister said they were welcome to change it. He was small and solemn, with dark eyes that tracked movement with unusual intensity. When the minister placed him in Zara's arms, Thomas studied her face with grave attention, then reached up with one tiny hand and grabbed her finger. "Hello, Thomas," Zara whispered. "Hello, sweet boy." Cole stood beside her, looking down at the baby, and his expression was one of wonder. "He is beautiful. He has some health issues," the minister warned. "He was born premature and his mother was not well during the pregnancy. He needs extra care and attention. The doctor says with proper nutrition and time he should be fine, but it will require dedication." "We can provide that," Cole said immediately. "If Zara wants him, we can absolutely provide that." Zara looked up at her husband, then back down at the baby in her arms. "I want him," she said. "I definitely want him." They brought Thomas home in February of 1880. James and Rose were fascinated by their new baby brother. James wanted to hold him constantly, sitting very still and serious with the baby cradled carefully in his arms. Rose insisted on helping with everything, fetching clean cloths and singing to Thomas when he fussed. Thomas required significant care. He was underweight and had difficulty feeding at first. Zara spent sleepless nights rocking him, coaxing him to drink milk, monitoring every ounce of weight gain. Cole took over many of her shop duties, and Martha helped watch Rose during the day so Zara could focus on the baby. But gradually, Thomas began to thrive. He gained weight and grew stronger. His solemn expression gave way to smiles and eventually to laughter that sounded like bells. By the time he was a year old, he was a healthy, happy toddler who followed James and Rose everywhere on unsteady legs. The years that followed were full and rich. James grew into a responsible young man, skilled with horses and cattle, thoughtful and kind. He never forgot his first family, but he embraced the Crawfords as truly his own. Rose bloomed into a bright, talkative girl who loved school and helping in Zara's shop. Thomas was the baby of the family, spoiled by his older siblings and doted on by his parents. In 1883, when James was 11, Rose was 8, and Thomas was 3. Another opportunity arose. Twin girls, age 6, orphaned when their parents were killed by a flash flood. The girls, Emma and Sarah, were inseparable and terrified of being split up. When the minister asked if Cole and Zara could take them both, they did not hesitate. The Crawford household became even more chaotic with 5 children, but it was a joyful chaos. Emma and Sarah brought their own unique personalities. Emma was bold and adventurous, always climbing trees and exploring, while Sarah was quieter, more thoughtful, happiest when reading or drawing. They fit into the family as though they had always been there. Cole and Samuel's ranch prospered, becoming one of the most successful operations in northern Nevada. Zara's shop expanded, and she took on an apprentice to help with the increasing demand. But more important than any financial success was the family they had built, the home they had created. On their 10th wedding anniversary in October of 1888, Cole and Zara took a rare evening alone. Martha had agreed to watch all 5 children overnight, giving the couple a chance to celebrate without interruption. They went to dinner at the best restaurant in Winnemucca, then walked slowly through the town, holding hands. "Do you remember what you said to me that day in my shop?" Zara asked. when I was crying because it would have been my wedding day to Thomas. I remember every word of that conversation, Cole said. You told me that there were many ways to build a family, that being unable to bear children did not make me broken or worthless, that we could adopt, that we could pour our love into children who needed homes. Zara stopped walking and turned to face him. Cole, you saved my life that day, not physically but in every other way that matters. You gave me hope when I thought hope was impossible. You showed me that my life could still have meaning and purpose and joy. You saved mine too, Cole said. I was drifting before I met you, looking for something I could not name. You gave me purpose. You gave me a family. You gave me a reason to be the best man I could possibly be. We have 5 children, Zara said, laughing and crying at the same time. 5 beautiful children who needed us as much as we needed them. Sometimes I look around our dinner table at all those faces, and I cannot believe this is my life. I cannot believe I am this blessed. You deserve every bit of happiness, Cole said firmly. You deserve everything good in this world. They kissed there in the middle of the street, just as they had kissed at their wedding, just as they had kissed 100 times since. But this kiss carried the weight of 10 years of marriage, of 5 adopted children, of a love that had weathered every challenge and emerged stronger. As they walked back toward home, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the trauma that had nearly destroyed her, about the way she had rebuilt herself piece by piece. She thought about the moment she met Cole, how skeptical she had been, how certain that no good man would want a woman like her. She thought about the leap of faith it had taken to accept his courtship, to believe that she could be loved despite her perceived brokenness. And she thought about their children, about James, who had taught her that wounded hearts could heal with patience and love, about Rose, who had shown her the power of gentle nurturing, about Thomas, who had needed extra care and thrived under their devotion, about Emma and Sarah, who had brought new energy and laughter into their home. None of these children shared her blood, but every single one of them was hers in the deepest sense of the word. She had not given birth to them, but she had chosen them, fought for them, loved them through nightmares and illnesses and growing pains. She had been there for first steps and lost teeth and schoolyard triumphs. She had bandaged scraped knees and dried tears and celebrated achievements. This was motherhood in its purest form, stripped of biology and reduced to its essential truth. Showing up, loving unconditionally, providing safety and guidance and unwavering support. And Cole had been right there beside her every step of the way, an equal partner in building this extraordinary family. Over the next several years, the Crawford children continued to grow and flourish. James, at 16, was already helping to run the ranch alongside Cole and Samuel. He had inherited Cole's patience with animals and his work ethic, and he was respected by the ranch hands despite his youth. He had also started courting the daughter of a neighboring rancher, a sensible girl named Margaret who shared his quiet nature. Rose, at 13, was thriving in school and had expressed interest in becoming a teacher. She had her mother's creative streak and spent hours writing stories and poems. She was also fiercely protective of her younger siblings, especially Thomas, whom she adored. Thomas, at 8, was growing into a sturdy, confident boy who loved nothing more than following James around the ranch. He was fascinated by horses and had a natural talent for working with them. Emma and Sarah, at 11, remained best friends as well as sisters. Emma had discovered a talent for mathematics and wanted to help with the ranch's business accounts, while Sarah was developing into a gifted artist who drew everything she saw. The Crawford home was never quiet, never boring. There were always children racing through the rooms, always voices calling out, always something happening. And Cole and Zara would not have had it any other way. In 1891, the minister approached them one last time. There was a teenage boy, 14 years old, who had been living on the streets of Carson City. He had gotten into some trouble, but the minister believed he was fundamentally good, just lost and angry and in desperate need of structure and love. His name was William, and he had been orphaned at 12 when his parents died of influenza. Cole and Zara were older now, in their early 40s, and their oldest children were nearly grown. Taking in a troubled teenager would be different from adopting younger children. But when they met William, they saw beneath his defensive posture an angry expression to the scared, lonely boy underneath. "We already have 5 children," Cole told William honestly. "Our house is loud and chaotic. We have rules and expectations, but we also have love and acceptance. We do not care about your past or your mistakes. We care about who you choose to be from this moment forward. If you are willing to try, we are willing to give you a home." William stared at them, clearly waiting for the catch, for the conditions that would make this offer something other than what it appeared to be. When none came, when Cole and Zara simply waited patiently for his response, something in his expression cracked. "You would really take me in?" "Even knowing I have been in trouble." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Zara said. "Everyone deserves a family. You are not defined by your worst moments, William. You are defined by what you do next." William became their 6th child in the spring of 1891. The adjustment was rocky at first. William tested boundaries, pushed back against rules, got into arguments with James about ranch work. But beneath the rebellion was a desperate need to belong, to be wanted. And the Crawford family met that need with unwavering love and firm consistency. James, mature beyond his 18 years, took William under his wing. He taught him ranch work and horsemanship, but more importantly, he taught him by example what it meant to be a good man. Rose, Sarah, and Emma drew William into family activities, refusing to let him isolate himself. Thomas, still young enough to be unaware of the complexities, simply accepted William as another big brother to adore. Gradually, William softened. He started doing his chores without being reminded. He helped Emma with her mathematics. He carved a beautiful wooden frame for one of Sarah's drawings. And one night at dinner, 6 months after joining the family, he looked around the table and said quietly, "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Family does not give up," Cole said simply. "That is the whole point." By 1893, the Crawford family was a fixture in Winnemucca. Everyone knew about Cole and Zara and their 6 adopted children. Some people admired them, while others thought they were foolish for taking on so many orphans. But the Crawfords did not care about public opinion. They cared about the family they had built, about the love that filled their home. James married Margaret in the summer of 1893, and they built a small house on the Crawford property. Within a year, they had a baby daughter, making Cole and Zara grandparents. Holding her first grandchild, Zara felt a sense of completion that was profound and moving. She had built a family from nothing, and now that family was growing, branching out, creating its own legacy. Rose announced her intention to attend normal school to become a teacher. Cole and Zara supported her fully, proud of her ambition and determination. William had transformed into a responsible young man who worked hard on the ranch and had started courting a young woman from church. Thomas continued to excel with horses, and Emma and Sarah were inseparable as ever, both planning to remain in Winnemucca after completing their education. On a warm evening in October of 1895, the entire family gathered for a celebration. It was Cole and Zara's 17th wedding anniversary, and their children had organized a party. The house was full of food and laughter, with James and Margaret's baby daughter being passed around, with William telling jokes that had everyone laughing, with Rose and Sarah playing piano while Emma and Thomas sang along. Cole pulled Zara aside for a moment, leading her out to the porch where they could watch the sunset over the distant mountains. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned back against his chest. "When I think about that day I chased your hat down the street," Cole said, his voice warm with memory, "I had no idea I was chasing my entire future." "I was so determined to keep everyone at a distance," Zara admitted. "I was so sure that I had nothing to offer anyone, that my inability to have children made me worthless. And then you came along and turned my entire worldview upside down." "You were never worthless," Cole said. "You were wounded and grieving but never worthless, and look at what you have built. Look at the lives you have changed. 6 children who might have grown up in orphanages or on the streets, who instead had love and stability and a real home. Grandchildren who will grow up knowing the story of how their grandmother survived something terrible and used that survival to create something beautiful. That is not the legacy of a worthless woman. That is the legacy of a hero." Zara turned in his arms to face him, tears streaming down her face. "You made this possible. You showed me that family was not about biology. You stood beside me through every adoption, every sleepless night, every challenge. You have been the most extraordinary partner I could have ever imagined." "We did this together," Cole said, kissing her forehead. "Every step of the way together." They stood there as the sun set, holding each other, listening to the sounds of their family inside. And Zara thought about the words Cole had spoken to her so many years ago in her shop on the worst day of her life. She had told him she could not have a baby after what happened to her, and he had said, "Then we will build a family." And they had. They had built a family through love and choice and determination. They had taken broken pieces and created something whole and beautiful. They had proven that family was not defined by blood but by commitment, by showing up every day and choosing to love even when it was difficult. Their 6 children, each with their own story of loss and pain, had found healing and purpose in the Crawford home. They had learned that they were worthy of love, that their pasts did not define their futures, that family was something you could create through deliberate acts of kindness and care. And as Cole and Zara stood on their porch, surrounded by the tangible evidence of their love, they knew that their story was one of triumph. Not the triumph of wealth or fame or power, but the triumph of 2 people who had taken their wounds and turned them into wisdom, who had transformed tragedy into hope. Inside, their children called for them to come back, to join the celebration. Cole took Zara's hand, and together they walked back into the house, back into the noise and chaos and overwhelming love of the family they had built. Their story had started with loss and pain, but it had become a testament to the transformative power of love, to the truth that family was what you made it, and that the most profound legacies were built not through biology but through choice. As the evening wore on, as the family gathered around the table for cake and more laughter, Zara looked at each of her children in turn. James, her firstborn, now a husband and father. Rose, bright and determined to make a difference in the world. Thomas, growing strong and confident. William, transformed from an angry teenager to a responsible young man. Emma and Sarah, still inseparable, still bringing joy wherever they went. And Margaret, who had joined their family through marriage and fit in as seamlessly as though she had been born to it. This was her legacy. Not the children she had been unable to bear, but the children she had chosen to love. Not the family that had been stolen from her, but the family she had built with her own hands and heart. Not the life she had thought she would have, but something infinitely richer and more meaningful. Cole raised his glass in a toast. "To family," he said, his voice carrying through the room. "To the family we choose, the family we build, the family we become." "To family," everyone echoed, glasses clinking, voices rising in harmony. And Zara, surrounded by her husband and her children and her grandchild, by the family she had built from love and determination and unwavering faith in the power of choice, smiled through her tears and knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The scars of her past would always be part of her story, but they no longer defined her. She had been broken and she had healed. She had been told she was worthless, and she had proven that wrong in the most profound way possible. She was a mother, a wife, a grandmother, a pillar of her community. And most importantly, she was loved, deeply and completely, by the family she had chosen and who had chosen her in return. The cowboy had promised they would build a family, and they had kept that promise beyond anything she could have imagined. And as the celebration continued around her, Zara Crawford knew that her life, once shattered beyond repair, had become something more beautiful than she had ever dared to dream.